I would like to say my regret that I'm not in Madrid currently, but that's because one of a very important reason is that we are currently finishing today. Actually, we are finishing the proposal for a sub-law act regarding the indicators for Croatia, and it will finally become obligatory for all destinations in Croatia to measure indicators. And we are finishing the document, which will be this obligation will be based on. Therefore, I hope that you understand the reason why I'm not there. But yeah, it is quite important now to finish this process and to finally make it obligatory for Croatian destinations. Also, today I would here like to present presentation topic of climate change monitoring practices and adaptation and mitigation measures within the INSTO network. Since we are also part of INSTO network, the Cross Observatory, since 2016, we have in the start of the application decided for 15 indicators from various mandatory issue areas that UNWTO had then proclaimed. But in that moment, we didn't decide for any of the climate change indicators. Therefore, we have decided to just to take some time to do the investigation. What do others do? What are the best practices that already exist? And since we are also developing a tourism sustainable satellite account for Croatia, we are doing quite a lot of work on gathering all the emissions that are produced from tourism and to see what are the results that are going to go out of that research also. Therefore, in our work, we have decided just to rethink a bit and to think of the new indicators that will finally not only be our responsibility of the Cross Observatory, but also the responsibility on the local level for all DMOs that are existing in Croatia. And in the meanwhile, what is new in Croatia? I think, unfortunately, these pictures are more or less showing also what is new in the other countries worldwide. These pictures here are only from the last summer in Croatia, which obviously are quite presented through extreme weather events that have been happening. And it's obvious, if not before, it's obvious now that time to tackle the climate change and measures that can be implemented through tourism has come. Therefore, our new tourism law has implemented the monitoring of sustainability for all local DMOs, where the main 15 sustainability areas for monitoring have been included, including also sustainable energy management and climate change mitigation and adaptation measures. Those two areas are focused on exactly the topic that was interesting to us, and therefore we have started to conduct research. When it comes to adaptation and mitigation, that's the other part of the talk about the climate change. One are the impacts of the climate change of tourism, and another is also the impacts of tourism on climate change, where obviously we have a quite dependent between the climate and the tourism, where the climate is a factor that is requisite for staying in destination, but in the same time, tourism contributes, as you all know, quite highly, especially to emissions of greenhouse gases through the passenger transport, which is obviously a part of tourism and it is inseparable. Accelerating climate action in tourism is therefore of the utmost, I would say, security importance for the resilience of the whole sector, and discussion about the adaptation and mitigation measures and their impacts on the resilience of destination is quite important. Furthermore, we have recognized as the most two important directions to take and to take measures on, and therefore we have decided to continue with our research. When it comes to the case study that we have conducted, the primary aim of the study was to discern if tourism destinations do actively monitor and gather data on climate change impact in the destination, and as well as the tourism sector contribution to those changes that are inevitable. Of course, we have decided to direct our study towards the INSTO network, since their efforts that we have also heard today about is one of the best case studies that exist worldwide. So it was obviously a good idea to try to see what are the other observatories doing. We have tried to question out the three segments. What are some general info about the observatories, the insights into regional climate change plans, strategies that they exist, and finally, what are the specific climate change indicators employed by the observatory that we have gathered information from. When it comes to the case studies, of course, we have sent the survey to, thanks to the INSTO team in the UNWTO, to Cordula and to Dirk, to the whole network. But finally, we got the answer from 11 observatories, which we found quite interesting. And it doesn't mean that other observatories do not measure climate change impacts or mitigation adaptation measures, but those are the answers that we have gathered. First, we tried to find information about what are the hazards that have been recognized through the study. And obviously, those hazards in the end have quite a lot of risks for the regions that they are happening in. When we come to the main hazards, the increase of temperature, heat waves, and changes in participation patterns have been emphasized as the most important ones. Even though the others have quite big scores, unfortunately, especially floods, droughts. So we have both parts of the extreme weather events that we can expect in the same destination, which is also very hard to tackle through the measures that have to be implemented. Furthermost, among those risks is also water scarcity, especially the alarming depletion of drinkable water supplies in some regions has been also recognized. And in addition, there is a distinguishable alert in the ecosystem service dynamics, where also wildfires, erosion, droughts have impacts on those data dynamics. I can now, let's say, point out that, for example, the observatory that is working on the area of Yucatan underscore the jeopardizing influence on sectors like also others from other sectors such as agriculture, livestock, and fisheries. So they have some observators are also discussing about the jeopardizing effects that are coming out of other sectors, not only out of tourism. When it comes to the assessed tourism impacts on climate change, it was expected, and the greenhouse emissions from the transport have been emphasized as the most important impact that is happening. But also, which we didn't expect so much, is the reduction and reduced resilience of the natural habitats caused by tourism and the impacts that are connected with the changes from the climate changes. Also, a lot of these results have emphasized that the observatories have undertaken a lot of activity engaged in measuring emissions, especially from the land-based vehicles, aircrafts, maritime vessels, and so on. So it's obvious that those areas have been recognized as the most important one when we have to get data to have measures that will be effective. After we have talked about the risks and the impacts, we have decided to see what are the policies and ways of assessing and monitoring the contribution of tourism to climate change in various INSTO observatories. And it was interesting for us that out of 11 observatories that we have replies from, 7 of them are already actively engaged in shaping new strategies to assess and monitor the vulnerability of the tourism to climate change. That's, I think, a quite good score. From some, there are various actions and inclusion in policies that have been recognized. For example, previously we heard from the Thomas Okanagan region in Canada, which have pointed out their proactive stance against wildfires, which is evident, and they are doing a lot of programs with wildfire services and local administrations to constantly evaluate fire risks, which are threatening in the region, and also have been included in the fire smart initiatives that involve then controlled burns of flammable materials like forest sagebrush and pine needles. So they are having a quite, I would say, effective, good, and very precise contribution to the not only policies, but also to the field strategies that are happening. On the other hand, some observatories, for example, our observatory at the Institute for Tourism in Malaga in Spain, are navigating the roadmap through the plan of the recovery, transformation, and resilience, where they are actually contributing to the development through the diverse EU programs, of course. For example, we are, as I also previously mentioned, leveraging the UNWTO TSSA methodology to implement the TSSA, and in the constant improvement of the process, we have also now been tackling some regional and destination questions raising from the climate change impacts on that level. Also, the Observatory Malaga is challenging its efforts into amplifying energy efficiencies while concurrently exploring the intersections of the carbon footprint program, which is quite, I think, also valuable job that is done. And also, I would like to point out some answers that we got from the observatory in South Tyrol in Austria, which are having a great methodology of monitoring CO2 emissions in tourism-related traffic. And they are also now focusing on the accommodation emissions, which are next steps to do. Similar is also in Navarra in Spain. So when we try to conclude what are everybody doing, we can say that there are broad three categories of different CC indicators measured. One of the categories are indicators that are concentrated on quantifying emissions from the specific tourism activities, such as carbon footprints, CO2 emissions from transport, and energy consumption. On the other hand, we have indicators that spotlight ecosystem services, considering them as potential avenues for climate change mitigation. And in the end, we have also a set of diverse indicators focused on the efficiency of the individual adaptation strategies, which are, for example, different e-bike route maps, eco-labeling, and also energy efficiency measures. On this slide, you can see a whole list of the indicators that tackle climate change from the observatories that we have been got the answer from, which are quite different in their focus, in their also regional aspect, and it's interesting to see all different approaches. And some of those approaches are actually impacted by the different hazards and risks and different policies that are focused on the mitigation and adaptation strategies. Therefore, also the indicators are quite different. They are different also regarding the size of the region. Is it the urban region, rural, and so on? So different aspects of the climate change indicators are measured. And finally, what can we see? What are the main takeaways from this research? Are also the indicators that we are now going to start to implement it. But finally, some global conclusions are that there is what has been already today amplified. There is a pressing need for cohesive, internationally aligned policies to address the multifaceted challenges posed by the climate change. And also, there is a need to, even though there is understandable regional analysis and priorities, and there is a need for systematic review of all the possibilities of the indicators that can finally have a good and quite important policy implications, and must emphasize also collaborative data-driven solutions that can prioritize both environmental sustainability and, in the end, economic resilience, which is threatened through the climate change events. So, further research should develop the policy interventions, possibly through extensive case studies, which will give us more data about what are the final thresholds, if there are any thresholds, and what are the measures then implemented to meet the climate changes. So I think that a lot of good job is done. That we have learned that, obviously. The job done is also quite dependent on the policies that are in the background. Because of that, there is quite different approaches, but still I think that through those different approaches that all of us can learn a lot. Thank you very much for your attention.